Welcome to Interesting Express. Today we will analyze the history of Thanksgiving. Close your eyes. What do you see when you think of Thanksgiving? Probably a huge table, a golden turkey in the center, family members arguing about politics, cranberry sauce, and maybe a blurry image of pilgrims with funny hats and Native Americans sitting together in perfect harmony. That image is powerful. It's the one we were taught in school. But is it the real story? Spoiler, no. Or at least, it's not the whole story. The truth about Thanksgiving is much more complicated, stranger, and honestly, much more interesting than the postcard version. In the next few minutes, we will not only talk about the famous banquet of 1621, we will explore how a desperate harvest meal, forgotten for over 200 years, became the most important national celebration in the United States. Let's talk about politics, about an incredibly stubborn magazine publisher, about a civil war, and yes, we'll also discuss why we eat turkey. Let's analyze the history of Thanksgiving. Let's go back to the beginning. The year is 1621. The place Plymouth Colony, in what is now Massachusetts. The group we call the Pilgrims, who were actually religious separatists who had fled from England, had barely survived their first winter. Of the 102 passengers on the Mayflower, almost half died. They wouldn't have made it at all without local help, specifically the Wampanoag tribe. The Wampanoag people, led by their sachem or chief Massasoit, had lived on that land for over 12,000 years. They saw these pale, sick, and unprepared colonists arrive, and this is where politics come into play. Massasoit didn't help the Pilgrims out of pure kindness. He had a problem. A plague brought by earlier European explorers had decimated his tribe, and his rivals, the Narragansett, threatened to take control. Massasoit needed allies, and these Englishmen, with their noisy firearms, seemed to be them, so they made a deal. The Wampanoag, through men like Tisquantum or Squanto, taught the colonists how to grow corn, fish eels, and survive in this new world. In the fall of 1621, after their first successful corn harvest, the colonists decided to celebrate. Governor William Bradford organized a harvest feast. Massasoit arrived with 90 of his men. 90. There were only about 50 settlers, including women and children. This was not a quiet dinner among equals. It was a display of power. The feast lasted 3 days. They didn't eat turkey, probably not. The records mention waterfowl, ducks, geese, and deer, which the Wampanoag brought. There was no pumpkin pie. They had no sugar or flour, nor cranberry sauce. They ate venison, fish, corn, and perhaps some shellfish. And here is the first big myth we need to break. This was not the first Thanksgiving. For the Puritans, a Thanksgiving was a solemn day of prayer and fasting to thank God for something specific, like winning a battle or ending a drought. The 1621 feast was a harvest celebration, a secular celebration, and most importantly, it was completely forgotten. It did not become an annual tradition. In fact, the relationship between the colonies and the Wampanoag soured very quickly. In a few decades, the English expansion and mutual distrust led to a devastating war known as King Philip's War, which decimated the native populations of the region. The beautiful image of Plymouth faded into history. So, if the 1621 feast wasn't the origin, where did our modern Thanksgiving come from? Let's move quickly, more than 200 years. During the following 2 centuries, Thanksgiving days were declared sporadically. George Washington proclaimed one to celebrate the new Constitution, but there was no fixed date. Some states celebrated it, others did not. And then, the true mother of Thanksgiving enters the scene, Sarah Josepha Hale. If that name doesn't sound familiar to you, it should. Hale was one of the most influential women of the 19th century. She was a poet. She wrote Mary Had a Little Lamb, novelist, and most importantly, the editor of Godey's latest book, the most popular women's magazine of the time. She was the original influencer. For 36 years, Sarah Hale led a relentless campaign to make Thanksgiving a unifying national holiday. She wrote editorials, she published recipes, she helped popularize turkey, stuffing, and pumpkin pie. He wrote letters to 5 different presidents: Zachary Taylor, Millard Fillmore, Franklin Pierce, James Buchanan. All ignored him. But then he reached Abraham Lincoln. The year was 1863. The country was divided in two in the midst of its bloodiest civil war. A few months earlier, the Battle of Gettysburg had taken place. The nation was desperate for something to unite it. Lincoln saw the brilliance of Hayes' idea. In October of 1863, he issued a proclamation declaring the last Thursday of November as a national day of thanksgiving and praise to our benevolent Father. But look at his language. Lincoln didn't mention the Pilgrims or Native Americans even once. Not a single word about Plymouth. For him, Thanksgiving was a way to look forward, not backward. It was an attempt to heal the wounds of a divided nation, to find gratitude even amidst war. It was a masterful political and cultural move, and it worked. The history of the Pilgrims that was added later, in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when the nation was seeking a mythic and unifying origin story for its growing immigrant population. The history of Plymouth became the perfect parable of perseverance and welcome, even if it was a very edited version. Okay, that explains the celebration. But what about modern traditions? Why did they become so ingrained? Let's start with the food. Why turkey? Well, partly thanks to Sarah Hale, who promoted it in her magazine. But it was also practical. Turkeys were large birds native to America, and most farms had one. They were large enough to feed a big family, but not as useful as a cow, which gives milk, or a hen, which lays eggs. Killing a turkey for a celebration made sense. The cranberry sauce. Cranberries are native to New England and are harvested in the fall. The seasonality is simple. And soccer. How did soccer get involved in all of this? It is a strangely parallel story. College football was booming in popularity at the same time that Thanksgiving became a national holiday. In 1876, just 13 years after Lincoln's proclamation, Princeton and Yale universities played their first championship game on Thanksgiving Day. It became the event. It was a way for people to leave their homes, socialize, and participate in a new American tradition. By the early 20th century, Thanksgiving football games were an institution. The NFL simply jumped on the bandwagon in 1934 with the first game of the Detroit Lions, a marketing tactic that clearly worked. And the parades? That was also marketing. The most famous Macy's parade in New York started in 1924, but it wasn't out of gratitude, it was to officially kick off the Christmas shopping season. Macy's employees, many of whom are first-generation immigrants, wanted to celebrate their new American heritage with a grand European parade. They brought animals from Central Park Zoo, floats, and it became an instant hit. So the party we are celebrating today is a strange mixture, an echo of a 1621 harvest festival, founded on a civil war, designed by a magazine editor, and seasoned with football and consumerism. But this story is not happy for everyone, and it's crucial that we talk about it. For many Native Americans, Thanksgiving is not a celebration. It is a reminder of the betrayal, land theft, and genocide that followed the supposed act of friendship. The Wampanoag tribe, the same one that helped the Pilgrims survive, was nearly wiped out in the following decades. Since 1970, many Native Americans and their allies gathered at Coles Hill, a hill overlooking Plymouth Rock, on Thanksgiving Day. They are not celebrating, they are commemorating what they call the National Day of Mourning. It is a solemn protest, a moment to mourn the millions of indigenous lives lost due to European colonization, to fight for their rights and to remind the United States that history has more than one face. It's not about canceling Thanksgiving. It's about adding the truth, understanding that for some to build a new world, they had to destroy an old one. Ignoring this perspective is ignoring history itself. So, what is Thanksgiving today? After all this, what does this holiday mean in the 21st century? It has become chaotic. For millions, it's the start of a 5-day race that includes Thanksgiving Thursday, Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, Cyber Monday. Is the official kickoff of the Christmas consumer madness. Yes, the worst day of the year to travel, crowded airports, congested roads. It's a day of culinary stress, trying to keep the turkey from drying out and ensuring the side dishes arrive hot at the table at the same time. But deep down, at its core, the original idea of Sarah Hale and Abraham Lincoln still resonates. In a world that moves incredibly fast, Thanksgiving compels us, forces us to pause. It forces us to sit in a room with the people we call family, whether the family we were born into or the one we choose, and share a meal. The party has evolved. The story we tell ourselves about it has changed. The menu is different, and now we understand the painful truths hidden behind the myth. But that central idea, gratitude, is still there. It's a day to look around the table amidst the noise and chaos and acknowledge the good things we have. A day to reconnect. Maybe that's the true tradition. Not the pilgrims, nor football, not even the turkey. It's just stopping and giving thanks. Thank you for watching us. Subscribe for more stories. Until next time.